to the first episode of Nintentalk, where we review and talk about several Nintendo-related subjects. And today we are talking about Nintendo's various controllers over the year, back from the good old NES to today's Nintendo Wii. They've changed a lot of these, as you will see. First off is the original Nintendo controller. It had the good old classic D-pad, the select and start buttons. I don't really know what the select button does. It's not really used that often anymore. And the A and B. So basically, it's like the Nintendo Game Boy buttons, but on a console. So that is really where Nintendo started off, but hey, beats what they were originally doing, making playing cards. Next we're on the SNES, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. So, I'm actually familiar with this one, because even though I don't have a Super Nintendo Entertainment System in my house, somehow I have a Super Nintendo Entertainment System controller in my desk. Don't ask how that happened, I have no idea. But this one is really a step up from its predecessor, with the inclusion of 2 trigger buttons and the X and Y buttons. The X and Y were repeatedly resurfacing in later consoles, along with the trigger buttons, which are still used a lot today in video games. And in fact, most controllers nowadays have 4 trigger buttons instead of 2. So trigger buttons are very useful, I think. So next we are on to the Nintendo 64 controller. And if you have never seen this thing or played on it, it looks weird. As you can tell by the picture you're looking at right now. So, I have never played on the Nintendo 64, but I have seen it at my friend's house. This included the addition of a control stick, but where do you hold it? I mean, I want you to look at this picture and post in the comments how you hold this thing, because I'm really curious. But, this one, as you can see, is the first one to not have a select button, so they must have decided it was useless. But you got the addition of 2 more buttons, and I have no clue what those are called. And it still has the good old 2 trigger buttons. So, yay! And moving right along, we're at the Nintendo GameCube. Now, the Nintendo GameCube is one of my personal favorite controllers, and it has the control, because it molds right into your hand, and you have the control stick, the D-pad, the C stick, the start button, the A button, the Y button, the X button, the B button, the Z button, the R button, and the L button. Now, this only had one less button than the PlayStation 2 controller, and surprisingly, a lot of the games that are on the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, when you port them, it doesn't really cause that much of a problem, it doesn't seem like. I don't know how. So I guess that you only need one button. Like, it has 3 trigger buttons, like it has the 2 triggers, and then the Z button above the white trigger. So I guess the second button above the trigger on the PlayStation 2, which I also qualify as a trigger button, is not used that much. I don't know. So next we are moving on to the Nintendo Wii, the new one. And in case you haven't noticed by now, I am not including handhelds in this. That will be another video. But the Nintendo Wii controller has the A, B buttons, and then, which is in most games your standard jump and attack, and then you have your plus button, which is generally used as pause, and then the minus button. I have not seen the minus button implemented that much. So, and then you have the 1 and 2 buttons, which have varying functions depending on what game you're playing on. Like, sometimes they'll even be used as pause, leaving, like, I think they could be used as special attacks. I don't know, I never really played that many games on the Wii. And then you have your nunchuck, because the standard Wii controller only had the D-pad. Now the nunchuck is where you get your advanced controls. It's where you get your, it's where you get your analog stick, your C button, and your Z button, C and Z button, which also have varying functions. The Wii controller is also the first controller that we got nowadays for a home console that implements motion. And that was very interesting. I mean, everyone was so excited about their getting off the couch, playing Wii Sports. But then again, they didn't know I was going to turn into Waggle. Wii Waggle. But now we're going to go on to the lesser known ones, like the Super Scope. And you thought it was only in Super Smash Brothers. And this was meant for a shooting game, and I never really got to use it, but I know that it existed, obviously. And it has buttons on the top, from what I can tell by looking at pictures of it, because I never even saw this thing in real life. I have no clue how to use it. But this, I think, is one of the original attachments that you got for your game, which allowed you to do stuff that you wouldn't be able to do before, and immerse you more in your game. And now we're looking more, and now for the last but not least, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat Bongos. And this is for the GameCube release, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. And these things are very loud. You use the left and right drums when you hit them to move left and right, and hit them both at the same time to jump. It also had a microphone on it, which allowed you to, which when you clapped, it caused Donkey Kong to clap when he stunned enemies and grabbed bananas. And obviously, banging on a pair of bongos while clapping a lot is a great way to get a bunch of noise. So make sure you wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, get on your GameCube, pull out your bongos, and start playing it, and see how your roommate or siblings react to it. It's mostly going to end up with you getting beat up as you're yelling, "What the heck are you doing?" But Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was later ported over to the Nintendo Wii because, well, actually, surprisingly enough, pounding on a pair of bongos and clapping, they decided it's good exercise.